Hey everybody, Jacob here with Ground Zero Car Audio, welcoming you to the first and regretfully not the last 0 hour podcast. Um, why are we here? What are we gonna do? Why are we talking to you? Why am I in front of a camera with a light and a little microphone here to talk about Ground Zero Car Audio? It's not just gonna be about Ground Zero Car Audio. What we're going to do is it's going to be me, it's going to be my friends, it's going to be this industry, and we're going to sit here and talk about absolutely anything. Whether it's a product, whether it's an event, whether it's a new thought process or something happening in the industry that's exciting. We're gonna mention it. And who are those friends? Basically everybody that I've met and worked with over a long period of time. Anybody that's involved in Ground Zero, whether it's from the motherland in Germany at corporate or my local team, we're gonna bring you everything that we possibly can that you wanted to know about Ground Zero. We're gonna bring you everything you didn't want to know about Ground Zero, and we're gonna mention a lot of stuff that you didn't know you needed to know. Um, so I had mentioned, getting my friends involved and having conversations and just BSing about the status of the industry. And I believe that the first guest on this first podcast should be no other than a longtime friend of mine, a longtime industry veteran, a leader in a certain segment of the industry, which is near and dear to my heart. But yes, I would like to bring in a trainer of mine from past jobs, a coworker of mine from past jobs, and now a current coworker of mine with our current company, one Mr. Nick Wingate. So let's welcome Mr. Nick Wingate.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for the glowing remarks, by the way. I appreciate it.
Well, I can make some things up from time to time, and it seems to
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so elephant in the room, dude. You're here.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Well, for many, many years, it's always been for me about the music. And the music speaks to me. And when you started talking to me about how good some of this product was, and you know as well as I do, Jacob, I have, like you, I have a lot of friends in the industry. And people talk to me all the time, whether it's you, whether it's Fred over at ARC or Brian at ARC, or whoever it may be. We always talk about product and about cool product that's coming out. And when you started talking to me about Ultra a few years ago, that got my attention because I've always thought that that's where we as an industry we needed to go was more higher end product, and having the opportunity to actually see an ultra amplifier and actually hear an ultra amplifier, that was amazing. That literally was like, okay, now we're getting to where home audio is right now, and that intrigued me. And then when I had the opportunity to actually come over and work with you and the team, and to get the word out about just how good and how fantastic Ground Zero's speakers and amplifiers and processors truly are, that gave me what I needed to recharge the batteries one more time to go out and basically become the Pied Piper. And let's go talk about this and let everybody understand how good this is.
Yep, absolutely. And that's going to be one of the things, and again, it's about the fun, it's about the music, and we're going to cover a lot of that because I believe that it's important. Um, so it brings me to one of the biggest questions that I've got, and this is something that you and I have talked about in the past, but realistically, over the last 10 years, what well, not even the last 10 years, what obviously I think you said it. What drives your passion is your love of music, your
Mhm.
history of music. In a nutshell, like, can you explain why music is so important to you?
Well, I think it goes back to growing up in the formulating my personality when I was 8, 9, 10 years of age up until my teenage years. Um, Music was extremely important to not just me, but my whole generation. And not necessarily just that, the generation before me, and I'm going to say the generation after me. But we identified with the music. When I was 8, 9, 10, the country was going through a hell of a lot. We were going through the civil rights movement. We were going through not wanting to go to the Vietnam War, not being drafted. Even though I was 8, 9, 10 years of age, that still spoke to me. It's not as if I wasn't a patriot and believed in what the country stood for. It's not it. But there was there was a tremendous amount of upheaval going on in the country at the time, and the music that was being written at the time spoke to me and spoke to a lot of us, and it formulated who we were, and we identified with it. And growing up listening to Black Sabbath and listening to Zeppelin and listening to the Doors and listening to Crosby, Stills and Nash, and I can go on. They spoke to us. That music was a defining moment in lives. And I know that may sound really strange to a lot of people, but it truly did, you know, um, because music was a part of my household. When I was growing up, my mom and dad grew up in the 20s and the 30s and had to fight a war in the 40s. My dad was in the Navy in World War II. And my dad told me, goes, and he meant this with all of his heart and soul. If it wasn't for John Wayne and the Glenn Miller Orchestra, we would not have won World War II. And big band swing was a big part of me growing up because my dad and my mom, that's what they grew up listening to. And I enjoyed it. I realized how really good this music was. Even though I'm sitting there listening to the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and Zeppelin, but this music spoke to me too. And I realized then how important music was for an awful lot of Americans. Whether it was my mom and dad's generation of the 30s and the 40s, or my generation of, the 70s, 60s, and 70s, and the generation of the 80s and 90s, music spoke to us. And it would define who we were. And it still does for me. Even though I can listen to music that's recorded today and find an awful lot of it just amazing. But does it speak to me at the level that it did then? Some of it does. I don't say all of it does, but some of it does. And, that I think defines me and an awful lot of us in my age in the 60s and in the early 70s, whether you may be that age or not, it still speaks to us. And it's important. It's important to us. And it's the reason why still in the industry because it speaks to me.
And that's honestly probably one of the biggest things that I think drives a lot of us. I remember the first car that I experienced. It it related to that fact that I was in band all through middle school and high school. I
Sure.
I understood music from the core emphasis of how it's put together and how it's constructed and how it flows, and even then the music that I listened to growing up. So obviously you've been in the industry a long time. You've had various genres and lifetime of music speaking to you, but you're here in car audio.
Yeah.
And within that sub segment of the industry, right, of this music umbrella, what
Yeah.
are, I mean, we've seen massive strides. We've seen awesome implementation of product and product development. But let's talk about some of the hiccups, because there has obviously been things that have made our job as car audio enthusiasts, audiophiles, however we want to word it, difficult. What is a recent thing that has made your life, our industry difficult in the last reasonable amount of time?
I think it boils down to two things. One is people in our industry who truly do not understand the basics of music. Because let's face it, how many people actually in our industry know what a cello or an oboe versus a saxophone and a trumpet sound like? They don't. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 some odd years officially. And it never ceases to amaze me how many people in our industry do not know what an instrument sounds like live. And it bothers me because that's how we have to tune. And that's the other part of this is being able to tune a system correctly to make the client happy, whatever that may be. I find that is extremely difficult to convey to somebody that is calling, let's say, when I was doing tech support for another company, it never ceases to amaze me that nobody understood what a high pass filter was or a low pass filter or understood that a 12 dB per octave slope is completely different from a 24 dB per octave slope. And those are the basic ones we all have to learn upon. And the industry lost that because in the 90s, you had to know that. And we did. Everybody that worked in the industry in the 90s and the late 80s up into the 90s, you knew this.
Mhm.
If you didn't, you weren't working. You were not a part of this. And we lost it. And I think an awful lot of it has to do with the simple fact that the this is going to sound horrible, but that the phones, the computers, the internet, it took that those people who had the passion for it away from us. And I think they got to where they were relying upon the answers to be on the internet instead of relying upon themselves to learn what is necessary in order for us to be able to produce a system that is musical.
And I know that that's, in all fairness, that's one of the conversations that you and I have been having for the last, I've known you the better part of 20 years.
Yeah,
And, let's call it what it is, that elephant in the room, that thought process of what is the end result, right? What are we trying to do? And I think part of it is, yes, we have technological issues that stop us from being able to do what our intended goal is. We
yeah.
have personal, like, lack of knowledge or lack of understanding that keeps us from being able to do what we're supposed to be able to do. But at the end of the day, the end goal is to put a smile on the customer's face,
There it
right?
is.
And you and I have been saying that for a long time. So, we've talked about a couple of things that have been obstacles, right, of being able to accomplish it. But what is something that you feel is keeping this industry from growing specifically? Is it a technological thing? Is it a personal mindset thing? Is it a knowledge thing? How do we, what is it that you feel is the biggest hindrance in this? And I think you almost might have touched on it. You know,
Yeah,
is stuff like that the issue?
I think it's part of it. I think if you ask the average, let's say 16 to 30-year old, what is the focal point of their life right now, it would be the internet, it would be social media, it would not be driving a car, personalizing their car, putting an audio system in the car to where they can enjoy the music they like at whatever level they want to and not annoy people. That's not there. Um, I've done some research as to what you know younger people, and I hate to use that term, but it's just a gosh honest truth. What younger people are wanting in their lives right now, and I will tell you, a stereo system is not in the top 10, and neither is a car. So what does that tell us? We have a problem.
Right.
And there is again we identifying with the music, and it speaks to us. It's not. That's the future, of the excuse me, of the industry. Where are those customers going to come from?
So, okay, I think now is a perfect time for me to jump in on this one because you just hit something on the head that I want to kind of talk about. How do we fix this? What is okay, you and I can sit here and we can fix all the problems in the universe, right? But how what is the how does this change? How does this come to a point where we go, look, things are getting better?
Well, I think we have, as an industry, I think we have an obligation to teach those people that do come to see us, and this is retailers, that we have to be able to teach those people, first and foremost, that do come see us, what good music is, what great music sounds like. Whether it's rap, hip hop, techno, whether it's classical music, all the way to speed metal. They know what they like. You have to find the recordings that are really good, no matter what the genre is, and explain to them what the goal is, no matter what, because for them, it could be just stupid loud. Okay, fine, great, but there's more to it than that. And we have to teach that exactly. Yeah, this is where, we have to teach. And as an industry, I think we have failed to, number one, to teach music, to teach what sounds great, why recordings are made a certain way that they are, and why YouTube is not the place to go and do a demonstration for your client. I think that's a big one. I think the other thing is we're not teaching anybody in the industry how to arrive at a great sounding system, how to tune. We've been teaching, and we have to. And this was a necessity that we needed to upgrade our installation capabilities when it came to, customization. No question that needed to be done, and I think it's been done, and I think it needs to still be done. But are we teaching people how to tune?
And I think you nailed it. I mean, that's a big part of it is getting that done. There's something that I want to pick your brain on here in a little bit, and we will cover that when we come back. All right. Well, the end of an intro means we're back to talking to two car audio idiots. So I wanted to, okay. So you had said something a little bit ago that I think mixes with this entire thought process, right? Of tuning and understanding music and everything along those lines. And I know that this is a project that you've been spearheading. I honestly is how I feel. I know we've talked about it for a long time. It's nice to see it kind of in iteration. I know that some of your friends have come out of the woodworks and been able to say, "Hey, we're doing this." But let's talk
Yes.
about the combination almost now of high end home two channel car at the same event. I know that when we talk about industry updates, when we talk about changes in the industry and events, why is this something that we should care about? Because who would have ever thought to do this before? Oh wait, we did. Why'd we get away from it?
Exactly. We did get away from it, and I don't understand why. But I got to give credit where credit is due, and um, the folks who are basically running IASCA, they had an opportunity to become part of the high end home audio show world, to put it that bluntly. The first one took place back in February in Tampa Bay. There was about 20 or 22 cars there. And the home audio world embraced them. They literally came outside, which I thought was interesting. And a number of people listened to the cars, and the comments that were made were that they had no idea that car audio had gotten to the point where imaging and staging and timbre, proper timbre, was available. They were blown away. And it's what we were hoping, those of us in the industry who knew about this experiment, it was something we hoped was going to take hold. And it did. The largest high-end home audio show in the country is called Axpona, which is in Chicago every year. Iasca was invited back by the folks that run this show, and there was 20, again, another 20 some odd cars there, and it was a huge success. There were people listening up to 45 minutes, I have been told, to listen to some of the vehicles that were there. And these are the best of the best that were available at the time. And a number of people, again, they were just blown away because they had absolutely no idea that this was possible. Because up until that point in time, when you were to go to a high-end home show and you talked anything about car audio, all they would think about is, excessive boom and somebody yelling obscenity at 2 o'clock in the morning, waking their kid up. And that's the industry's fault, as far as I'm concerned, because there's way more to the industry than that. But who marketed it correctly to the other side of the SQ world that there's more to it than that? We just didn't do it. And
And
again, it's because I think we did not emphasize the music.
and I this is something we've talked about, something you've taught me, and something that I've heard in recent trainings done by somebody who's drinking out of a blue cup right now. You had mentioned the thought process of kids aren't caring about cars. Young adults aren't caring about cars. They're not, running out and getting their driver's license like they used to.
Yeah.
These are statistics that you've told us that is shocking. But why is it important, to you in your mind to relate to some of these high end home guys? Is it a situation like you where you talk about, hey, I'm reliving my memory, or is it a business move? Like what are we really doing here? And if you can tell me that in a nutshell, like I think that's going to be important.
Well, I think it's both. You know, First of all, nobody in our industry that we would like to have as clients have more passion for the music than these folks. When you walk into the average, let's just say you walk into the average room at Axpona, you're going to find systems that are probably at the lowest side. You're probably going to find something that retails for about 15,000 up to 3 million. And then people start laughing just like you right now. That $3 million for a two-channel system just to listen to music? Yeah, absolutely. When you have companies like Wilson Audio and you have companies like Magico that build speakers that are $750,000 a pair, and you have to have the electronics that match it, such as Mr. DiAgostino's, for instance. You're looking at a system that takes 3 and 4 days to put together, especially when it comes to the Wilsons. Um, and then you have to have everything that goes with it. You have to have vinyl turntable. Yes, you have to have a turntable. You have to have a server. You have to have something that is going to keep the system from blowing up, which means that you're putting a tremendous amount of product in there that stabilizes voltage. You have to have the room treatments. You have to have the interconnect. You have to have the speaker cable. You have to have the fiber optic cable. You have to have the digital coaxial cables. I can go on.
Right.
These
And
people, they don't mind spending the money. It's the passion. It's their hobby. And when you can tell them that I can get you 60% of what you have in your home system in your car, and you can listen to it while you're driving to work every day and coming home every day, which can take up to 2.5 hours if you live in Houston, Texas. Why would you not want to experience that in the car?
exactly.
Yeah, of
And
course.
that's and that I think you reiterated like what my thought process was, right? Is if we're going to talk about the music, we got to talk about the equipment. If we're going to talk about the equipment, that means I'm going to pick your brain here in a second. So we'll be right back. All right. You and I both know I can't have you on here without asking you questions about product. It's kind of what you do. You listen to things,
It's
you've
true.
got your thought process, you know the background, but you you ruined it for me a little earlier when you started talking about Ultra. And the internet has heard me talk about it, right? But I'm not an SQ reference, you know, head, so to speak. I can tell you if a car is right or wrong. I
Hmm.
cannot inherently tell you, is this a gear thing? Is this a placement thing? I mean, I understand all of these concepts and I can build phenomenal sounding cars, but I can't do what you do. I mean, that's part of the reason why you're here is you have a certain set of skills. But talk to me about Ultra. Why did you mention it earlier in this conversation as something that made you go, hmm, this is super intriguing, especially considering the fact that Ground Zero has been making like gnarly products for a long time. Why that one? What is it? What's special?
Well, I think it comes back to the emotional response that the amplifier that I heard brought out in me. Um, that is rare in car audio, and it's almost as rare in home audio for me now. Um, the best I can say, Jacob, is the first time I had an opportunity to listen to that amplifier. It was through a system that um, it had a set of speakers, and I wish I could tell you which ones it was, but I don't remember. But I know it was going through a passive network, and it was just a two-channel It was a two-channel amp, and I decided I'm going to listen to music that I have judged to for the last 30 years, that I know it backwards, forwards, and sideways, because obviously this is the flagship product, from the company. And as such, I wanted to give it every opportunity to, impress me or not impress me. And so I listened to, well, this is going to give away my age, Jennifer Warren's famous Blue Raincoat. And it's an audiophile standard for the last 30 years. And you can go to a high end show today and you'll still hear it. And there is a saxophone that's in the recording that is very prevalent. And it literally almost took my breath away. It made the hair stand up on the back of my neck and on my arms. And I was sitting there going, this sounds almost live. And you could hear the emotion that the whoever was playing this instrument, you knew that they were putting everything they had into it. You could hear the keys open and close. You could hear the air coming out of the bell of, of the instrument. It literally was like, oh my goodness, listen to this. And then when Jennifer started to sing, it no longer was a recording. It was live. You could hear the microphone. And in a recording, if it's there, the amps and the preamps and the speakers have got to be at the absolute best from a technological standpoint and from a design standpoint to hear the microphone. And you could hear it, and that told me everything I needed to know. And then I listened to, I don't know, another 10 or 15 songs that I know intimately well. And I had the same experience listening to all of them, especially when it came to classical music. And classical music to me is always the absolute hardest thing to reproduce in car audio. Why? With the simple fact that we don't have a 875-pound enclosure that the drivers are sitting in to eliminate any of the resonances. Car is we all know it's a resonance disaster waiting to happen. But they did their homework. Whoever built this car, and I wish I could remember, but they did a really good job. They killed almost all the resonances in this system. And there's another track I listened to, and it's called "Oh Lord, Make Me an Instrument of Thy Peace." It is a classical piece. It's recorded at the Meyerson in Dallas, and there is a 16 hertz rank organ note that comes out of this thing, and then there's a 250 member choir that sings. And when the choir is 6 feet above the hood of the car, and you have to look up in the car to hear these people sing, yeah, you've done it. and you know that, yeah, this is one of the tracks I used at Knowledge Fest. It's extremely difficult to reproduce in an automobile. And this one did it in spades to where I could understand every single solitary word that that choir was singing. That is not easy to do. Even really good home systems, it's not easy to pull off. And, the speakers in the car were not ultra, they were really good. But I also know that there is only one reason why I'm getting this kind of resolution, so to speak, and it's coming from this amplifier. And when you understand what, Gordon Taylor did, and that he was giving the parameters of whatever it takes, do it. You then begin to realize this is different. This is completely different than anything in car audio. It reminded me of, again, we're going to go back to the mid 90s because there was an amplifier built in the 90s that I had this same response to. It was an Adcom 4702. This thing was enormous. It was two chassis. The power supply was separate from the output devices. Nelson Pass design and blah, blah, blah. I mean, yeah. And it was amazing. It also retailed for $3,500 in 1994. Guess what that would be today? Yeah. We're
A
talking
lot more than I
20,000.
could.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at 20 grand. And this amp is every bit as that experience for me. And it put a smile on my face. And I was like, yep,
And
whoever did this knows what they're doing.
that's and that's the biggest thing, as you had mentioned earlier or a couple minutes ago. It's different. And that's kind of the whole experience of, well, not only, the Ground Zero brand, but the Ultra in general, is that it is doing something different than what we, I guess, expect it to do, because we're not expecting it to concentrate solely on emotional transfer. And that was the first line out of your mouth, is the first thing that I experienced when I heard him the first time was, holy crap, I feel everything Johnny Cash is singing about right now when he covered Hurt by Nine Inch Nails.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah,
the
absolutely.
the cover of Sound of Silence, the
Yep.
the the evolution of that track and how it just keeps building and building, and like
Mhm.
you said, the hairs on the back of your neck come up, and it's just it's a great experience to know that, you know something is being done different in this industry, to be able to concentrate on that fact. Now, that's the amp. I know
Yeah.
personally that you have a set of speakers in your possession that I'm fairly certain are going to be difficult to get back. But I know you've been playing with one of them. I know you haven't really had a chance to play with every bit of it yet. But
Well,
let's take that thought process. What are you experiencing with the speakers now?
well, for many years back, all the way again, going back to the 90s when I was competing, in IASC and USAC in the expert class. Myself and one of my dear friends, Mr. Dale Fontenot, we were listening to every speaker and amplifier known to man because what we were wanting to do was to build something for both of us would be like, we're not going to spare any expense. We're going to find the best that works together collectively. And we would listen to speakers. And one of the things that we always did, and I still think you should do, is if you want to know how good a speaker is really is, play it full range. Whether it's a mid bass, a mid range, tweeter, yeah, put a 10 microfarad capacitor on the tweeter and just let it play. You want to find out how good it is? Play it full range. Just put it on the floor or put it in front of you, wrap a towel around it, isolate it, put it on a baffle board, however you want to do it, and just play it full range and see what it does. It's going to show you real quick what it can and what it cannot do. And I can tell you that I did this again, and I hadn't done it in a while. But when I took that 6.5-inch mid bass driver in the ultra line and I set it right in front of me and I played full range music through it. I sat there and went, I can't find anything wrong. And I wanted to find something wrong, and I couldn't. No matter what I threw at it, it didn't matter what I played. And again, I am a huge fan of Fleetwood Mac and listening to Stevie Nicks sing. Her voice is extremely difficult to reproduce correctly. And I'm sitting here listening to Gold Dust Woman, and I hear every inflection out of her voice, and nothing breaks up. And even as I begin to turn the system up, and I'm going, nothing's wrong. Nothing gets nasty. Nothing gets nasal. And I'm sitting here listening to the snare and the drum kit that Mick Fleetwood's playing. Then I'm listening to Mr. McVie play his bass all the way down into the 50 75 hertz range on a speaker that's not in an enclosure, and I'm going, are you kidding me? Really? So yeah, this is obviously a very, very well engineered, very well built, proven product. And when you have the ability to listen to something like that, you begin to understand that this is different. This is way different because there's only a few speakers and I'll be brutally honest with you, there's only one in all the years that I've been doing this that I can go, yeah, this is there. And it was built by a company named Cabas out of France. They built a driver. It was called a 2-1 NDC. It was the best 8-inch mid-bass driver I've ever heard anywhere, period. I don't care who builds it. And this thing is right there with it, with what it does. We never found a thing wrong with the NDC. Never. And I'm sitting there listening to the speaker, and I get the same response. I mean, the hair stands up on my arm, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This thing is this good.
And that
And
and that for me, that's the to be able to I know what your gold standards are. And to be able to say that this stands against the gold standards that Nick Wingate has, that he's established after this amount of time and career, is, man, that's phenomenal. So that to me, that's Ultra in a nutshell. It's something
yeah.
that makes that guy go whoo, and to me, that's the most fun thing we can do.
Oh,
On that,
yeah, absolutely.
we will be right back. All right, so I am happy to say that this is a wrap for the first official 0 Hour podcast brought to you by Ground Zero Car Audio. I would like to thank one of my closest friends, Mr. Nick Wingate, for not only allowing me to make him do this, but also uh, coming over to the dark side, so to speak, so that we can have some fun. Um, if the thought process of the high end home and the car audio combination that Iasca has kind of put forth interests you, join in for our next episode on October 16th, where we will be diving into a little bit more in depth on that thought process and what we're all trying to kind of accomplish industry wide. Follow us on all the fun socials, Ground Zero USA, just about anywhere you can find us. Subscribe on YouTube, a thing I never thought I would ever have to say. That being said, thank you. See you guys on the next one.